It's a Wonderful Life is about a man named George who would do anything to help someone else. And then it causes him some trouble and he wishes he was never born. I'm not even sure if this should count as a Christmas movie. It opens in Bedford Falls, and people praying for some guy named George. The angels here, and they are shown as galaxies for some reason. I really don't know why they chose this way, but okay. So they send an idiot named Clarence to save his life, but first they start showing him George's past. This is George when he was 12, and they're sledding down the hill on shovels because in the 1910s, no one cared about safety. His brother falls in the river, and George saves him, but he gets a cold, which causes him to go deaf in his left ear, because it's the 1910s, and medicine sucked. And this 12-year-old has a job. What the heck was going on back then? Anyway, he finds out that Mr. Gower's son died of the flu, but he sends George to deliver some medicine to a kid, but he doesn't deliver it. So Mr. Gower starts smacking the crap out of him. I was joking before, but what the heck was going on in 1919? But George tells him he didn't deliver them because this drunk old man accidentally put poison in them. Did he just lick poison? After a bunch of filler and setup that really doesn't matter, George goes to Harry's graduation party. Keep in mind the year he graduated. And this guy opens the pool under the floor, George and Mary fall in, and George's fake hair falls off. I'm not sure why everyone else is jumping in the pool, but sure. While he's walking Mary home, her robe accidentally falls off, so she hides in a bush, and he starts messing with her, and these guys find him and tell him that his father has had a stroke. Man, this movie really likes the sideswipe transition. It seriously happens after almost every scene. But after his dad dies, Mr. Potter, the richest, biggest dick in the town, tries to liquidate their family business. Plus, this guy constantly sounds like he has something stuck in his throat.
Now you take this loan here.
See what I mean? But the board votes to keep the business open, but only if George takes it over. So instead of going to college, he gives his college money to his brother and stays to run the business. So this guy's been screwed over by this town twice now. And then his brother gets a job, so now he still can't go to college. And that's 3. This guy's life sucks. But George leaves his brother's wedding party and goes to Mary's house. They get into an argument and then, yeah. Did you know they actually had to cut some of this out because the censors at the time thought it was too sexual for the public to see? But anyway, they get married on the same day the Great Depression begins. Okay, the Great Depression began in 1929. So let's follow this timeline. George was 12 in 1919. He helped his dad for 4 years after he graduated high school, gave his brother his college money, and waits another 4 years, then gets married in 1929. If you add that up, that means he would have to graduate when he was 14 years old. But that doesn't even make sense, because how does his brother graduate in 1928, go to college for 4 years, and come back and still have George get married in 1929? And on top of that, this is during the Prohibition, so Bert the cop giving them a bottle of champagne would be illegal.
Oh, I feel like a bootlegger's wife.
What the hell? They even acknowledge the Prohibition right here. I'm starting to think this might not be a very good movie. So everyone's freaking out, and George gives up his honeymoon money to help the people out until the banks can reopen. This guy is way too nice for his own good. But Potter finally gets sick of George and offers him a job. George basically tells him to go screw himself. Is this supposed to be Potter's bodyguard? This guy's older than he is. So the movie finally starts skipping forward towards the point of this movie. And along this time, Mary has 4 kids. So on Christmas Eve, Billy is about to deposit $8,000, and wow, this jump cut. Anyway, he accidentally puts the money in Potter's paper, and he just steals it. After realizing that they're going to jail, George goes home and freaks out at his kid's teacher and his family. You know, I never realized how many jump cuts this movie has before now. But he then goes to Mr. Potter for a loan, and Potter acts like a complete dick. So then, he goes to the bar and gets punched in the face by the teacher's husband, and after about the 200th sideswipe transition, he crashes into a tree and just walks to a bridge. So, in the beginning, the angels said George was going to kill himself in an hour. But then, they took an hour and 35 minutes to explain his past and send Clarence. This movie has really bad time management, but Clarence jumps into the river and George saves him. So while drying off, this movie finally gets to the point that it's known for.
I said I wish I'd never been born.
So he gets his wish and they go for a walk. And he figures out his car is gone and this is now Pottersville. So he goes to the bar and Nick's now a jerk. Not sure how George never being born changes his entire personality, but okay. And Mr. Gower is homeless after serving 20 years in prison for poisoning the kid in 1919. Has anyone else noticed that he hasn't aged at all in the last 30 years? And for some reason, Potter has turned the town into a miniature Las Vegas. But even when George existed, he still owned 90% of the town, so couldn't he have just done this anyway? He then goes home and finds out his house is abandoned. So he goes to his mother's house, but of course, she doesn't recognize him either. So he goes to where Bailey Park was and finds a cemetery and his brother's grave, since he wasn't there to save him.
Harry Bailey broke through the ice and was drowned at the age of 9.
Wait. His tombstone says 1911 to 1919. There's no way you could take those dates and have it add up to him dying at the age of 9. He was 8. Also, in order for him to be buried here, this means that the cemetery would have had to been here long before Bailey Park was ever built. Did George build houses over a cemetery?
Every man on that transport died. Harry wasn't there to save them.
So there was literally no one else that could have flown that plane and saved the soldiers on the transport? Okay. And finally, he finds Mary and freaks her out. As he's leaving the building she ran into, he punches the only cop that this town apparently has. Yeah, sure. Let's just shoot into an open crowd. People in the early 1900s really just didn't care. George decides he wants to live again, and oh look, it's snowing now. Once he realizes he exists again, he starts running around like a crazy person, and goes home. So while Mary was out looking for him, she told the town folks what was happening, so they all gathered money, and I guess somehow found $8,000 between all of them, even though none of them seemed to have very much money. And Clarence gets his wings. What about the fact that the original $8,000 is still missing and Mr. Potter just stole it? Well, don't think about it. This is one of the most recognizable Christmas movies there is, but it still has its problems. Like how the timeline is all screwed up. And it makes some odd editing choices, like how almost every scene ends with a sideswipe transition into the next, and that there's several jarring jump cuts. But this was made in 1946, so the editing style had a lot more limitations than there are today. The acting overall is really good for the adults, but the child acting is pretty bad. I'm not sure how this counts as a Christmas movie, since nothing Christmas related happens until about the last half hour, but what's the definition of a Christmas movie anyway? Don't forget to do the YouTube stuff, and thanks for watching.